thanks for joining me, your sports pilot James Glory, on another exciting episode of Sport Vibe on DNT, where we'll bring you exciting and latest sport happenings across the world of sport every Tuesday, as is our tradition to do so. This week won't be an exception. Please stay tuned, because we'll be right back shortly after this break. Welcome back. It's a beautiful edition of Sport Vibe. This week is going to be an interesting one, particularly focusing on the Premier League that has just been won by Arsenal Football Club. Over 22 years wait ended for Arsenal Football Club as they eventually clinched to win the Premier League title ahead of the Manchester City side. It was a favor done by Bournemouth for Arsenal Football Club before the last game of the season, where we saw Manchester City going ahead to lose to Aston Villa at the Etihad Stadium. It was an interesting one to see Arsenal lifting the trophy after waiting 22 years to win that particular one. Is their 14th Premier League title in the club history, and what a time to be doing so for Mikel Arteta side Arsenal Football Club all over the globe. Congratulations to your fans, and it was a resilient fight this season to make sure that they were unable to continue with the trend that we know them for, finishing second all throughout the previous season. But this time around, it was a step forward for Arsenal Football Club and Mikel Arteta, particularly Declan Rice, who has arguably been up there to probably win the PFA Player of the Season, propelling them to that. And also, you know that their goalkeeper, David Raya, was an outstanding one in the fight for them to win the Premier League title of the season. But an interesting one, like we said, the Premier League had some twist and turn in it, as we saw Pep Guardiola losing his final game at the Etihad Stadium against Aston Villa. Aston Villa were able to get a crucial win, though they have cemented their spot in the 4th place of the Premier League. They were able to make sure that Pep Guardiola didn't get the win in his final game at the Etihad Stadium, the game that finished in favor of Aston Villa, winning 2-1 at the Etihad Stadium. And Pep Guardiola finally bid his farewell to Manchester City after 10 years spent with Manchester City. Pep Guardiola finishes with 20 trophies for Manchester City. What a dominance that he had in the Premier League and all competition when it comes to English football. It's going to be a relief for the rivalry fans in the world of football to see Pep Guardiola eventually leaving Manchester City after his dominance reign in the Premier League. Will Mikel Arteta be able to step into the shoes of Pep Guardiola in the Premier League? He is equal to the task, as he's just won the Premier League of the season. Is an interesting one to see. Also, Manchester United finishing in the UEFA Champions League spot, just 7 points behind Manchester City in the Premier League. When you look at the Premier League table, I haven't started the season in a poor state and in a poor form under Ruben Amorim. Michael Carrick came into Manchester United and was able to transform them and get them to winning ways and propelling them to finish in the UEFA Champions League position, just 7 points behind Manchester City this season and ahead of Liverpool, who were the former holder of the Premier League title. Manchester United, when you look at their trend, Michael Carrick was unable to get players, but he was able to get the results with the same crop of players that Ruben Amorim failed to use very well. He utilized them and was able to get the best out of Manchester United, to propelling them to finish in the UEFA Champions League position. Like I said, the Premier League is what we'll be dissecting. When you look at it very well, you know that Tottenham Hotspur also were able to avoid relegation after getting a crucial win against Everton. That game could have turned out to be an incredible one for the season, seeing Tottenham Hotspur being relegated, but they were able to fight still and maintain their place in the Premier League under Roberto De Zerbi. You can see the passion on the face of De Zerbi. He knows that the teams like Tottenham Hotspur should be playing in the Premier League. What are the amends they will be able to make going forward for Tottenham Hotspur next season with the players out on injuries, likes of Kunduz, Jamie Matson out on injury? We'll have Kulisevski and the likes of them out injured for Tottenham Hotspur. I think if they are back to the team and under De Zerbi, we plays a fluid football, he could probably take Tottenham Hotspur to the next European competition, probably the Conference League, the Europa League, or the Champions League position. All things being equal, let's see how far he will be able to overhaul the team and keep them challenging once again for titles or probably European competition next season. An interesting one for Aston Villa, who are the winners of the Europa League. Unai Emery getting to win that particular one for the 5th time as a manager and propelling Aston Villa to winning it for a very long time, in over 3 decades. The Europa League in the bag and the UEFA Champions League position also secured by Unai Emery, and the Premier League. Liverpool, who finishes 5th position in the Premier League. Aston Villa were able to finish 4th position, winning the Europa League. Quite an interesting season they had. You know, they struggled very well in the beginning of the season, where they could only find it difficult to score goals and probably get wins, but it was a incredible one looking at the change of story for Aston Villa this season and being able to finish ahead of Liverpool, who signed so many players in the likes of Florian Wirtz and the likes of Alexander Isak, who didn't have an incredible season with Liverpool. But quickly, let's go on a very short break, and when we're right back, we continue from where we stop. Welcome back, and quickly continuing from where we start, we talk about Liverpool, who couldn't finish top 4 this season after winning the Premier League last season, and Chelsea Football Club, a sad one for them. They will be the new Manchester United next season without European competition under Xabi Alonso. Will they be able to do well, and will they be able to propel themselves to winning the Premier League? You know, Chelsea Football Club somehow find their way of winning trophies and find their way of contending for the Premier League title, especially the seasons where they are not playing European competition. We know what Conte was able to do with Chelsea Football Club. Will Xabi be able to bring that fight into Chelsea Football Club, though we know that their team lacks experience presently? Will they be able to challenge for the top 4 or probably the Premier League next season? Of course, they have what it takes, and you never can tell in competitions like this, where we have the likes of so many clubs participating and contending to win that particular one. And of course, they finished 10th position, and which means they wouldn't be participating in the European competition next season. But an interesting one for us this season is that Sunderland, the team that just got promoted from the Championship, were able to maintain their stay or remain in the Premier League. And not just remaining in the Premier League, they were able to make their way to the Europa League in a long while. This is the 52nd year that they have participated in any European competition, but it was a surprising one, knowing that Sunderland were just promoted to the Premier League last season, and they didn't just stay in the Premier League. They will be playing in the European competition next season, particularly in the Europa League, ahead of Chelsea, ahead of every other team that they met in the Premier League. Sunderland, congratulations. It was an incredible victory for them against Chelsea Football Club at the Stadium of Light, where they were able to seal their spot in the UEFA competition next season. And also, we know that Bournemouth this season under Arolia has been doing tremendously well, and they were able to book their spot also in the Europa League after going 18 matches undefeated in the competition in Premier League, as it were. It was also a sad one for the fans of Bournemouth to see Arolia leaving the club, but they'll be hoping that their next manager, there has been speculation that it's going to be Marcos Silva that will be taking charge of them, or probably Marcos Rose that will be taking charge of Bournemouth next season. They'll be hoping that he will be able to continue continue from where Areola stopped and probably winning the Europa League, as we know that the English team has the capacity of going into competition and contending for it. Arsenal Football Club, of course, are in the finals of the UEFA Champions League, and we know that Aston Villa had won the Europa League. Crystal Palace could be bagging the Conference League this week ahead of the finals of the UEFA Champions League, and as such, it's an interesting one to know that Sunderland are competing in the Europa League. Another interesting one, but a sad one for Brighton and Hove Albion, was that Manchester United eventually could do the double against Brighton and Hove Albion. It was a victory for Manchester United over the weekend, where we saw them winning Brighton and Hove Albion 3-0 in a match where Bruno Fernandes was able to surpass the assist record in the Premier League for over 34 or 43 years right now. It has only been 20 assists for a player, the most in a single season. But Bruno Fernandes, the magician himself and the captain of Manchester United, was able to surpass that, making it 21 assists this season, and he was able to win the Playmaker Award of the season. Is an interesting one, as we know that West Ham has been relegated following their win against Leeds 3-0, and we know that Burnley and Wolves won't be participating in the Premier League next season. Another team that has been promoted to the Premier League and will be looking forward to watch in the Premier League next season will be Coventry. We'll be seeing Ipswich and Hull City, who were able to defeat Middlesbrough in the playoff to make sure that they will be participating in the Premier League next season. So Premier League was an interesting one, and we'll be looking forward to more exciting Premier League next season. And we have so many individual awards won in the Premier League, where Elibrot Haaland was able to retain his spot as the highest goal scorer in the Premier League. This is the third consecutive time that he has been able to do it, and we saw Bruno Fernandes winning the Playmaker Award. That means the player with the most assists in the Premier League, not just the most assists in the Premier League, but the highest assists that we have witnessed in the Premier League, 21 assists in a single season. David Raya was able to win the Golden Glove for the third consecutive season. What a man in David Raya. It's going to be an interesting one to see who will be between the pole for the Spanish side this World Cup that will be taking place June, and also for football lovers across the globe. We can't wait to enjoy the World Cup, and this is the length at which we'll be going on this week's episode of Sport Vibe on TNT Work. For more news and sports stories, follow us across our various social media handles at Sport Vibe on TNT Work. Remain a law-abiding citizen. Enjoy your week. Thank you.